Okay, product service systems. Who has heard of something called a product service system? Is this language that resonates with you people? Okay, so seemingly not. Either that or you're too frightened to put your hands up. So first of all, let's get your brains thinking about this again, and I'd like you to, in your groups, just think about what is a product and what is a service. And in your definitions that you come up with over the next 2 minutes, I'd just like you to use the term value and the term stakeholder in your definitions. So in your groups, you've got 2 minutes to think about a definition for product and service using these two terms. Okay? So would somebody like to offer me, or one group before I pick a group, their definitions of a product and service, or the difference between a product and service? I'm going to pick on this group then. What's your definitions of a product or service, or the difference between a product and service?
So probably the basic difference is that service is non-material.
Okay.
And our definition as product that it's a result of production efforts that creates value for customers and brings profit for two stakeholders.
Okay. So a product is the output of a production effort which brings value to stakeholders and customers. And you suggested service is non-material, and that's the difference. Anybody got other suggestions? Can you have products which are non-material?
Yeah, digital.
Exactly. You can have digital products which are non-material. Does anyone else have an alternative suggestion of the difference between a product and a service?
I think they're the same.
You think they're the same?
Yeah, depending on the point of view.
Okay. Okay, so in the product service systems community, led by, well, one of the main leaders is called Tim McAloon in our section at DTU. We like to think of a product and a service in this way. So the product is the result of a synthesis process where the value is created by transferring ownership of the result from one stakeholder to the next. So somebody produces something and then transfers ownership to somebody else. Whereas a service is the creation of value when one stakeholder carries out an activity on behalf of another. Does it not make sense to anyone, or anyone think it's ridiculous? Okay, in which case that's the one we'll continue with then. So what is a PSS, or a product service system? Well, traditional product development is products. So you have a need situation, you go through some kind of integrated product development, and you produce a product. And then you sell that and transfer the ownership over to the user. But what we're looking at is, can we then also provide some kind of service during the product's life, so we can continue to extract value from it throughout the entire product's life cycle, as you saw in the previous section. Perhaps we can produce some kind of service. And of course, service is only existing when the customer is using the product in a product service system. So in a way, companies who set up to product service systems produce slightly better products because they mean the products to last and to be used. So this should now be familiar to you, the typical life cycle of a product. The traditional business model is to produce a product, make revenue on point of sales, and then transfer ownership over to the user. And then sometimes the producer still has responsibilities when it comes to disposal or recycling. But of course, the responsibility or liability, in other words, the legal responsibility of the product, still lies with the producer all the way through this life cycle. Now, where we'd like to get to in a product service system is an extended product responsibility and customer contact revenue source. So in a product service system, the producer still owns or has responsibility of the product right through its use phase. And for that reason, we have extended contact with the customers. In other words, we can extract value at the point of sales of the product, but also consistently through its use in installation, use, maintenance, and even disposal. So PSS is a business strategy. PSS means making a shift in focus from a business based on value creation through the transfer of product ownership and responsibility to a business based on value creation through support and delivery of a service from a product for the whole of its lifetime. So you can have a PSS system which is weighted towards making revenue from the product and engaging through the service, or making a loss leader through the product and making revenue through the service, or a bit of both. So we'll come up with some case studies now. Rolls-Royce. Who knows anything about the Rolls-Royce business model and how that is a good example of a product service system?
Airplane engines.
Say again, sorry?
Airplane engines.
Airplane engines is their business, correct? And what's their business model? Where do they have a service dimension to their products? Take it? The maintenance and renewal. Okay, so that's quite interesting there, because they sell or have traditionally sold aircraft engines to airlines. So why is it their responsibility to maintain? They can offer it as a service, which you pay extra for, but what they actually do is have a business model called power by hour. So people do not buy aircraft engines from Rolls-Royce anymore. They buy thrust, or they buy power per hour. So Rolls-Royce continue to own their engines throughout the product's use. So they give them their engines and they say, we will charge you depending on how much power you use through our engines, and we can guarantee our engines will continue to provide this power. And as a result, Rolls-Royce have much closer contact with their customers. Also, they get to know a lot more about their engines. They can have constant diagnosis systems in their engines, go and make sure they're maintained, and look at how well they're running, so that they can feed this data back into their product development process and make their next generation engines better. And they can also make sure that these products are being maintained correctly, because if you transfer ownership, the plane goes down, something goes wrong with these engines. It's Rolls-Royce's name on the engine, but it might not have been their fault for the reason it failed. So they take on full responsibility. So they've embraced the product service system business model. The next one, Danfoss. I'd be surprised if any of you have heard of Danfoss. Anybody? Okay. Are you Danish?
No,
No, okay. Would you like to say what Danfoss do?
I just know it's something to do with all the refrigerators, and maybe it's these
That's correct.
parts that they use.
That's correct. It's, they're traditionally sellers of thermostats for refrigeration. So these are things that control the temperatures of refrigeration units. So traditionally what they did was they produced these thermostats in Denmark. And of course, Denmark's a place of high wages, and they can't really compete against some of the eastern countries who are producing the similar thermostats for much cheaper. So they had to produce to a more high-value business model. So they started selling product service systems. So instead of selling thermostats like this, they went from electronic refrigeration controls to cooling in supermarkets. In other words, they consulted about how to set up your cooling system. And there's a very good reason for doing this. In this bottom diagram here, you can see a typical situation where you're using refrigeration units. And you can see the refrigerators here, which might have the thermostat running here, which is supposed to be very accurate and control the temperature of this refrigeration unit. But within this, you're in a cool room with an air conditioning unit, with heat coming off some fans and extractor fans, with cooking facilities. Basically, the whole building or room is set up incorrectly to control temperature. So it doesn't matter how accurate or brilliant this device is, it's never going to control the temperature of the meat in this room. So they offer slightly more expertise and consultancy services around how you can set up your facilities to better control meat, and it may be using some of their products as well. And it helps to avoid situations like this. This is an example of where they've used certain products incorrectly when you look at the broader spectrum of what they're trying to do. Some escalator stairs going up to a fitness room there. Xerox. Who can tell me how they've embraced the product service system? What did Xerox do to begin with? Does anybody know? Sorry? Printers, yeah. Printers and photocopiers. So you might be forgiven for saying Xerox sell printers and photocopiers. But if I told you they embrace product service systems, what might you say they do?
They provide electronic documentation.
They provide electronic documentation. So that's a much more holistic way of viewing printing or photocopying. So from photocopying machines to document services. So why was this important? Well, other people can provide printers, other people can provide photocopying services, but they realized, like most companies involved in photography or printing, that the real revenue to be had was in the consumables. So they produce ink, maintenance, paper. So during the use phase of this product, they can continue to get revenue. So they make sure that they can track the stocking of the different companies, make sure paper's always delivered to them on time, make sure ink's always kept up to date or well stocked within their printers, and they sell these complete services. So think about the revenue they'd be chucking away if they were just delivering printers or photocopiers. Dow Egberts, coffee. What do they provide? What do they make? So they have produced coffee machines in the past. They make these coffee machines and they can sell them to different companies. But they also embraced a product service system where instead of just producing coffee, they're also now in charge of the maintenance for the coffee machines, for the coffee vending machines. They're also responsible for providing the coffee that goes in these coffee machines. So the companies who buy the coffee machines now have their hands clean of the coffee machines and say, okay, it's up to you to provide coffee to our workforce, and we'll pay you a fee, a constant fee for doing so, and we'll buy our coffee from you. So instead of just selling once to the company, they can ensure a constant stream of revenue from having a product service system. IBM. Anyone suggest how their business model has changed over the years? What did IBM used to be known for? Well, traditionally, floppy disk drives. They made hardware components and they would sell hardware components. And of course, now this isn't quite so competitive. They decided that these can be done at extremely low costs. So they'd let that type of the part of the business go out to the east. And they actually sold that to Lenovo in 2004. And now they offer a consultancy service for computers. That is the IBM business model. And as a consequence of that, they embrace the open source community and make sure they always have up-to-date expertise and knowledge from the open source community. Their business is knowledge and consulting now. So they've servicized their business. DuPont sell paint So this is your turn now. They sell paint for cars. How have they made their business into a product service system? They traditionally just sold paint, which was used to paint cars. What do they do now? They apply the paint. So they provide the paint and they actually paint the cars as well. So traditionally, Ford would produce the cars, DuPont would supply the paint, and Ford would paint the cars. But now, Ford produce the cars and DuPont provide the paint and the painting. And because they're doing this, they can ensure quality of the service they're providing and make sure the paint is always produced correctly, make sure it's always applied correctly, and make sure that their product development suits the application of their paint. EasyJet. So what's the innovation behind the EasyJet business model? Why were EasyJet a success? Go ahead. Pardon? Sell tickets. Low cost, they sell tickets. Basically, you summed it up there. Why were EasyJet able to be a low-cost airline? I mean, of course, the provider of any product can be a low-cost version. Doesn't mean they're going to make money. What made it so that EasyJet were able to become a low-cost airline?
No customer service.
No customer service, so they stripped out all the complementaries.
Ticket vending machines.
Ticket vending machines, exactly. So traditionally, until EasyJet came along, aircraft companies provided these complementary services. So complementary rather than extra revenue. EasyJet decided we don't need any of these. Our customers will value money off tickets rather than these complementary services. But they were really able to knock down the price because they added an extra service. Instead of going to third-party vendors to buy tickets, to buy plane tickets, which we had to do, which was go to travel agents, they decided to sell them directly via the internet. And this means they could drive down the cost of their tickets because they removed somebody from their supply line. So in your groups now, an exercise for you is this scenario. You've been developing and selling microwave ovens for many years and have seen profits steadily falling due to increased competition. How could you add the service dimension to your business, and what market segment would you target? So I'll give you 5 to 10 minutes to discuss this proposition now in your groups. Okay? If I could call you back in now for the quick plenum. So who managed to add a service dimension to their microwave business? Okay, go ahead. Let's hear what you've got. Quiet at the back for a second, please.
Yeah.
Okay.
We decided to offer service for the supermarkets, for the beaches, for all different kinds of places that it will be like public use microwaves that you don't have enough time, or for the students they will buy products,
Yeah.
pastries or soups or pastas, and they will just put coin, they can heat it up and go outside to eat or sit on a bench somewhere.
What a good idea. And what's your market segment? Who do you think could really use this? Students, okay.
Maybe who don't have enough money to go to restaurant on a lunchtime, but they forgot to make food or.
I could imagine mothers with babies using that as well, wanting to heat up their milk and things. That's a really good idea.
Motels and hostels, because there's like no place to cook and just there's quick uses for it.
Not for every room, but they have only on the reception one.
Okay, that's a really good idea. Okay.
Sorry, I have a question. Who could buy those machines from you if you say you put those to the public
We are
places
offering-
on the service?
We are just asking for this place to put out this our product, and we will pay for the supermarket a little additional fee to keep it there, but from the money that we offer the full service that we clean and
You mean that sort of, if I want to heat something up, I have to pay a little to heat it?
Yes, yes.
Why?
Yes.
Supposed to be combined as a microwave vending machine that
Yeah.
is also
Exactly.
Yes,
It's a great idea. Anybody else have suggestions of how they can service-size their microwave producing?
Maybe connected to vending machines.
Connected to vending machines, so you're providing the service of the food on top of the microwave?
Yeah, then it works.
So we're thinking about machines where inside a microwave installed. It's like a coffee vending machine. You put it in offices and you have like several products from rice to whatever, Chinese pizza. And you just choose one product and then it falls down in the microwave and it delivers to you. It's actually the same thing like coffees. So we provide the products, the machine, and we charge them a fee for. Yeah.
That's a good idea. So you're moving in or combining with the vending machine business, providing the foods and the heating at the same time. Any other models on how to service-size? Go ahead.
We were thinking about targeting restaurants and cafes and providing a lease plan service.
Okay. So how would that work? Why would I want to lease a microwave from you as a restaurant owner?
We will guarantee that it always works.
Yeah.
So we replace it if it breaks.
It's not a bad idea.
Additionally, we could add free service for like 1 year repair in case of any breakdown of the ones that are purchased.
Okay.
Knowing that microwave often break down.
It could well be. And I can imagine when you're developing a new business or a new kitchen, some of these products, microwave ovens, might be quite expensive. So maybe for the start, to deal with your cash flow, you can just lease, as these have suggested, you lease out this oven and they will make sure it's constantly running well for you. Maybe provide cleaning services for you. Maybe take it away and replace it with a clean oven every couple of months. When you're happy with the service, you never bother buying one in. You just keep it going. Any other teams got another alternative way to a product service system with microwaves? At the back? Say again, sorry? Maintenance, okay, yep. Absolutely. Exactly.
Recently, an experience. My microwave was broken.
Yep.
I went to the repair shop, and it was more expensive
Yeah.
to repair than to buy a new one. So maybe the maintenance service can be optimized.
Now the trick with this is to make sure, I mean it's a good idea and it's something I would quite like to have this maintenance, but you have to reconfigure your business model so that you can make money from this maintenance, not provide it as a complementary service, because people generally aren't willing to pay that up front unless they're in a niche market. So you need to configure it so that people are willing to pay for that. Okay, unless nobody else has got another business model, I think we'll move on. But you can see there that there's a lot of different revenue streams from a simple product like a microwave business by just thinking about the service dimension. What services can you provide? And it's a good way of making a more sustainable business model because you have very close contact with your customers. You're always in and out. So if you want to branch into other product areas, you've got useful customer contacts. It gives you a lot of feedback about how your product is being used, which is another really good thing which can put you in front of the competition. But also this steady stream of revenue is a desirable thing. I'll just wrap up this presentation now. But Tucker and Tishner have produced one of the early publications on product service systems, saying there is a spectrum of business models or revenue streams, going from what is a pure product where value is mainly contained within the product to a product-orientated PSS where it's a product-related service. In other words, somebody will advise you which product you need or which product is most suitable to your application, and then they give you your product. Product-related advice and consultancy, a similar thing. Use-orientated product lease, which is the model Dee suggested for their microwaves. Rental and sharing, that's partly what you suggested, a sharing model where people can dip in and out and share the microwaves. Product pooling and pay-per-service, like the Rolls-Royce power by hour model. And then result-orientated is activity management, making sure the product is working well and well maintained, something that Rolls-Royce also do. And the selling of functional units, a bit like Xerox do or Dow Egberts. They have their coffee machines, but what they really make the money on is selling the consumables, the functional units. And then, of course, there's the pure service as well, which doesn't have a product related to it. So, again, we can use this model, which we used in the last time, to think about where in this product life cycle and the customer's activity cycle we can pin services to. So when you're analysing your products or your businesses, you can map this out again and just go through the checklist, think where can we add services onto each of these areas. And this is called the onion skin model, showing the different levels in which you can servicize your product or your business. From the product to product use services, where you maintain, repair, provide spare parts and warranty. This was produced in the 90s. Product life services, where you have supplies, installation, auxiliary inputs, meaning other supplementary products around it. Upgrade, disposal. Moving on through the years, mid-2000s, we're on to customer activity services such as training, planning, designing, specifying, operating, measuring. And now we're into the final phase, which is business supporting services like consulting, financing, managing, partnering and outsourcing. So this is the onion skin model of how much you can provide services around products. So PSS can be an effective way to bring suppliers closer to customers while responding to the customer's real needs. And services should be integrated into the design of products where valuable. So the next topic is open design, and I noticed from last week you've already been introduced to open innovation. So just a quick recap, who remembers what open innovation is, or who can describe it for me? No?
When you include your internal intellectual stuff and your external, like clients and some innovation process.
Very good. Somebody's been listening. So this is what open innovation is. It's when you accept external ideas into your development process and allow others to use your internal ideas externally to find two different routes to market. So you can take other people's ideas to market for them, and you can allow other people to take your ideas to market for you. That is essentially what open innovation is, as defined by Chesbrough.
Well, if we want to look for what open design is, we can turn to the Oxford English Dictionary, and we can look through it, but we won't find a definition of what open design is. But we will find a good example of early open design. The Oxford English Dictionary, first edition, as you can see here, was actually made through people sending in letters, enthusiasts from all around Great Britain who are interested in literature, sending in new words and definitions to be included in the Oxford English Dictionary. So this publication, this product, was built by the community, accepting ideas into their development process. So what is open design? Well, I'm going to split it into two categories, crowdsourcing and open source design. So just quickly, I'd really like a show of hands here. Who has heard of crowdsourcing before? Not so many. And open source design, I presume most of you have heard of. Well, crowdsourcing, the difference between the two. Crowdsourcing is when a company or an individual owns or has responsibility for a product or project, and then he sources the crowd or the public, gives them incentives or gives them financial rewards for contributing to the product. Open source design is slightly different, where somebody may be in charge of the product, but he doesn't own it. The community owns and develops the product. So Linux, for example, is owned by the Linux community and developed by the Linux community. So crowdsourcing comprises or is based around several key websites, from crowdfunding, crowd labor, crowd innovation, crowd aesthetics, and so on. So crowdsourcing, how might we use it? Well, this product here was developed at DTU probably about 15 years ago. In Copenhagen, we cycle a lot. This is a very simple design where you have magnets, clips of spokes, and a little electromagnetic coil in here which activates the lights. So it's basically replacing the dynamo. And a colleague of mine, Troels Pedersen, came up with this, but at the time he just produced the patent and he couldn't bring it to market himself. He didn't have the financing and he didn't have the marketing expertise, etc. So he produced the patent and he sold it on to some investors. And they took it to market, produced this successful company, Real. Had he have come up with that idea now and produced that patent now, he could have taken that product to market by using crowdsourcing for very little. Here's how we could have done it. We could have gained crowdfunding through these websites. Now, I'm hoping the uptake's going to be bigger, but how many of you have heard of Kickstarter? Okay, how many of you have not heard of Kickstarter? Okay, some people aren't engaged then. If you haven't heard of Kickstarter, your homework for today must be to go and look at Kickstarter, find out what it's about. It's one of the most important social phenomena regarding entrepreneurship over the last decade or so. And Kickstarter essentially is where you put up your project, you fill in simple guideline and requirement form, you talk about what your project's about and how much money you need to raise to bring your project to market. And then you produce a little marketing video here, say how much you need, and people will go on, browse the project, and give you money to develop your product in exchange for something such as to be on the official mailing list, or to receive a first edition of the product, or even to receive naming rights of the product. And people are funding these projects. So what this means for entrepreneurs is we don't have to go through the valley of death of funding. We don't have to all of a sudden go into massive minus equity in order to start developing our products. We can get the money up front, which is a huge benefit. So what we can do with our new ideas, put them on Kickstarter and try get funding up front. Perhaps you guys have got some great business ideas, but you don't have the skills or competencies to develop them, to implement them into real designs. So you can go on crowd innovation websites such as 9 Sigma, Get2.com, Quirky. I'm going to show you Quirky as an example. Here you put your business idea up online, you work alongside Quirky, and they will manage the community to come up with ideas for you. And they'll help you evaluate them and help guide the community in producing better ideas for you. So here's an example of they were a brief to design a new mechanism for a microwave to help stir the product within a microwave. And here are some of the designs that came back from the community after putting this project on Quirky. So you've got your great business ideas, you can whack it straight onto Quirky and get mechanical engineers from around the globe to start working on your ideas for you. And of course they want some kind of reward for it, but relatively speaking, it's very small in comparison. The other thing is crowd labour, small individual discrete tasks you can outsource to the crowd through various websites such as Fiverr, Clickworker, Mechanical Turk on Amazon, and this can be to refine certain images, to do some advertising for you, to design a website for you, and so on and so on. So last night I just put on $5 onto Fiverr and said, can somebody write a design for me saying European Innovation Academy 2012 Tallinn. When I woke up this morning, this person had done before. Obviously, this is a silly little example, but it's that easy to do. You do it the night before, and the next morning it's there. One of the products I've recently used, I'll come back to that in a second. Another thing you can do, as well as labour such as debugging or programming, you can get people to help with your branding. I guess most of you are pretty good at this anyway, but you can go to sites like 99 Designs and put up a brief. So one of the So I recently got granted a European trademark.
Just one thing, if I want to get a solution to my idea and I want to patent it, can I still do it?
One more time, sorry.
If I have an idea and I order a solution or design, can I patent it?
That's a very, very good question. There are sites that you can do that. You can protect the community you're working with, so you get any intellectual property from the outcome. So there are some sites that do that, but generally speaking, it's a more open community. So you're expecting, once it's released into the competition, the intellectual property in terms of patenting is gone. However, there are other forms of intellectual property. So I had an idea for a new after dinner digestive called what I wanted to call Tangerella. So it's a bit like limoncello but made from tangerines. So I got the European trademark for this. And then I just put a brief up online saying, I've got the trademark for a product called Tangerella. It's an after dinner digestive made from tangerines. I'd like someone to design some logos for it. So I just put up $250 and ran this competition. And in 3 days, graphic designers came up with 64 different designs. And as soon as they start coming up with designs, I start rating them and saying, I really like this one, I don't like this one. The community then can respond to my feedback and say, okay, he likes this type of design, not this type, and so on. This is the type of brief I put up. So this is a description about the product. These are the types of logos I'm looking for, the style. Then I put on the values I communicate to the graphic designers, color preferences and so on. And they respond with a load of designs. So some of the designs I then go through and eliminate. You can see what the designs were here. And you can see that they're actually a reasonable quality. So I get 64 of these designs to this level for $250, that's enough. Eventually I chose this one and asked them to develop that to a better degree. Once they've developed it to the point I'm happy with, they transfer it over to me, they transfer the copyright statement to me and produce a load of documentation around the product, around the label. And I can get them to do this with my packaging design or my website design or anything I want through this website. And here's some other examples of logos designed through 99 Designs. But it's not just the areas of product development that I've shown you. There are crowdsourcing websites for virtually all stages of product development. So anything you don't have the expertise to do, go look for some crowdsourcing websites and see whether the crowd will actually do that part of your development process for you. I would say crowdsourcing is now quite a mature field. You should get to know. And it's certainly been used extensively in the States, and it needs to be used better here. It's a brilliant tool for entrepreneurs. Something that isn't quite so developed, something that's of interest to me, is open source design, in particular open source hardware. So I presume most of you know what the open source software community is. But there's also an open source hardware community. Can anyone give me an idea of if we're providing the source code behind a program in the open source software community, what is open in the hardware community? In other words, what do we mean by open source hardware? Sketches, product blueprints. So for software, you release the source code. For hardware, you produce the product blueprints, the CAD models, the FMEA models, the finite element analysis models, the aesthetics and drawing and so on. And you make this available for other people. Why would you want to do that? There may be some good reasons. One reason is for a society, it's, in my opinion, much better to fund R&D projects rather than legal fees around patents. It really slows up the development process to have to wait for patents before you can communicate your design to other people. You maximise the value of the products by making it visible, and you gain value from being visible through being influential. There are a number of different Creative Commons licenses which help you do this, which give you some form of protection. So if you notice, all my slides have a Creative Commons license on it, which means anybody, any of you, are free to go and give my lectures using my slides if you like, as long as you just attribute them to my name. And products are being sold now with Creative Commons license. People are allowed to make them for themselves, sell them for themselves, make money, as long as they attribute it to the originator. But obviously there's different forms of the license. Some of them are non-commercial, some mean you're not allowed to change the product, and so on. So open design or open source design in its current state is an emerging paradigm that is currently a gift to society and people. The Brainerd Lab, I think it's Harvard, produce drugs which are open source. And the idea here is every time they come up with a really interesting new drug, not every time, if they come up with a new interesting base compound, they can release that open source and share a license to the pharmaceutical community, which means then pharmaceutical communities use this base drug to develop other drugs, but they have to do it in open fashion. And they've seen huge advancements in cancer treatment based around this drug, which have been much more rapid than they could have expected had it have been through a closed development cycle. We have several big players from the open hardware and the open software community. You should recognise a few of these, such as IBM, Eli Lilly, Toyota, IBM, Sun Microsystems, and so on. Here are two from the open source community. Has anybody heard of Arduino? Would you like to tell me what it is? Would you like to tell me what it is, or tell us what it is?
I think you can tell it better.
Okay.
You can describe it better.
It's basically a prototyping platform for electronics and software. So it's completely open source. Anybody can download the blueprints for an Arduino board and make one for themselves and start prototyping, making their own electronics. Another product called RepRap. This is a 3D printer, and this was developed by a colleague of mine when I was in Bath in the UK. Which happens to be the printer sat on my desk. And basically what this can do, I create a CAD file, I just push print, and this thing starts pumping through a kind of plastic laminate and starts printing components like the one you see here, like the components you see here, based around the CAD model. The interesting thing around RepRap is it can print its own parts. So I can buy one for 4,000 euros. And I can then print off the parts to 5 of you guys and sell the parts for 100 euros each to you guys. And then, sorry, it's 400 euros, not 4,000. And then you guys can also then build your own RepRap machines and start printing for your friends and so on. You've got this pyramid scheme. The reason these are so important is because now we can start transferring digital files across the internet, and people can start making products for themselves through these types of products. So if you go onto Thingiverse, this is a repository where people upload their catalogs of designs. If you have a 3D printer or access to rapid manufacturing, you can just download the CAD file, print them off, and make them yourself. Copenhagen's version of open design was the free beer project. So somebody produced a really nice brew of beer, some nice ingredients, and decided, I don't have the capabilities to take this to market myself, so I'm going to release it on a Creative Commons open source license, which meant anybody can produce free beer and sell it, as long as they use this free beer label. But another thing they can do is make derivatives from the product. So that's exactly what they did. People from around the world made free beer 0.2, 0.3, 1.2, 1.3, and so on. And these are all registered. Here's one from Taiwan, 2.5, here's one 4.0, a ginger-based variety of beer. But of course, when they're selling these, the originator of the product doesn't really make much money from it. Doesn't make any money. They make all the money. But they're getting advertising. Their brand is expanding. If I came up with free beer, I can make any one of these product varieties and sell them. And when people see free beer, they don't go to the producer of free beer 2.5. They go to the originator who created free beer. So this is a really good way of creating different product varieties around your brand name and getting exposure to your brand. That's exactly what Arduino do. They say anyone can make that product. If you make it to a certain standard of quality, then you can license our Arduino brand. Anybody who wants something to do with Arduino, go back to the originators of the project, and they sell expertise. So it's an emerging paradigm, and it's a gift to society, but can you really make money from giving things away for free? That's the big question. That's what I'm researching at the moment. Can we produce business models that take advantage of the open source movement in hardware? Well, Google pretty much give everything away for free. You don't pay for a search. We're not as successful if iTunes hadn't been for free. Who pays for browsing and internet? It's not totally uncommon to give things away for free and make money through other revenue channels. The old set of product development, this was a process development, well, an explanation of the process developed in our section. This is the product development. The product developer's role is to stretch apart the cost of the product and how much you can sell it for. Because the old mindset is to think we are selling to the final user. If I can produce it for less than he will pay for it, then I'm doing a good job. And the more difference between those two, the better product developer I am. But the new model is quite different. We don't necessarily sell or make money from the end users. We make them from other revenue channels. And that's what makes open design a particularly interesting, potentially viable business model. Another thing that's very interesting about open design, you should be familiar with this process now, but the end user is also brought in as a developer. Because it's open source, people can hack it, people can make product variants of it, people can use it and change it. So the users, you have expert users, and it's fed back into the development cycle. We've already done some research looking at the most successful companies in open source hardware and creating archetypal business models. And it turns out that they do have a very archetypal business model when it comes to all of these activities, and they differentiate themselves in terms of the revenue streams. So the way they differentiate themselves and make profits are through the different revenue streams. And I'll make this publication available to you if you're interested. We also produce a consultancy process around it, showing how you can map your current business model and then how you can create it into an open source version of your business model. And you can also find this in the publication. I won't go into it now. But we believe some of the benefits from our research of doing things in an open source manner are you've got rapid and cheap publicity. You have multi-user development and expert customers. You have increased product varieties. it's a competition killer because it's quite hard to compete against your competitors who are doing it for free. Strangely, the suboptimal is forgivable. The product doesn't work, it doesn't matter because it's hackable. People are quite happy with things not working perfectly. And where can we make money from it? Well, if our brand name is big, we can sell expertise. People want to come to us to know how to customize their products, how to develop new products. We can create spin-off products around our open source products. We can sell straight production. So I can continue to produce FreeBID or Arduino boards and benefit from the publicity it's gaining from other people talking about it making it, because I still produce it, people want to buy it from me. They don't necessarily want to make them. I'm saying me here, I don't produce it. You can make money from advertising through the publicity you're getting. You can have value from the use phase and also just get people to use the product and make money from the use data, or the customer data you got. So these are potential revenue streams of the open source. This is David Katia, someone we've been working with who is one of the CEOs of Arduino. He says, right now being open is no longer an added value. Either you're open or you're out. The internet has changed the game. We're becoming self-producers with access to information and possibility to learn whatever, whenever, wherever. I think open source is something that is coming around the corner and it's becoming more and more applicable. And if we can start finding open source models which are profitable for business, I think it could be a really interesting direction that industry could take in the next decade or so. This is an area I have particular interest in, so if anybody has interest and wants to do a project in this area, they're welcome to contact